Hello, greetings today. I know I took a break yesterday on talking about rules for radicals because I really wanted to talk just a minute or two on postmodernism. Postmodernism is it's a real thing. It's an issue that we have to address as Christian leaders. It affects everything. That's when you hear people reject facts. That's why they reject facts. It's an ideology. It's all rooted in postmodernism. So, but today I want to I'd like to get to two quotes in this video from Alinsky. I don't know that I will, but they're both very important because it can teach you. I think the first quote is something that Christians can use, and the second is something that Christians need to understand. So, without further ado, let's start. The quote is, if you start with nothing, demand 100%, then compromise for 30%. You're 30% ahead. Essentially, Alinsky is using this as the concept of the big ask, right? He implies that you need to take as radical of a position as you can in order to compromise with your foe. And when you compromise with them, you win. No matter what, you win. This is a great example of an antagonistic approach to a system. So, if you are going to try to tear something apart, anything you get is a bonus. Anything you get is progress. And so they're willing to keep pushing more and more extreme in order to get what they want. You can do this in negotiating with business. You can throw out a ridiculous price and then go from there. If you're buying something and you want to buy it and you start out giving a price, you've set the floor. If you're trying to sell something and you set the price, then you've set the ceiling. So it's always, if you have to set the floor or ceiling, you want to set it at an extreme. That way, the negotiating from there can only benefit you no matter what. And that's what Alinsky teaches his pupils. What we're actually seeing is interesting. It's something no human could live long enough to fully experience. It's that when you begin to take these radical positions, you develop believers in those radical positions who are unwilling to compromise. And that's what we're seeing in the modern world today. You're seeing people take radical positions that make no logical sense, yet they're also unwilling to compromise. They are ideologues, they are dogmatic, they're fanatical. And a lot of these, it's my age people and younger, and we are coming into power across the country, across the world, and we have been radicalized and to believe that any type of negotiation is wrong, and that's absolutely crazy, especially if you're trying to engage in what is clearly a multicultural society now. And that is the United States. We're very diverse. The values that bind us together are as loose as they have ever been. The concept of freedom and liberty, which were once a hallmark of the United States, there is a large minority of people who want authoritarianism. And that to me is absolutely insane. If you want freedom and liberty and to live in a prosperous country, then that can bind us together. We can compromise to figure out the best way forward. So you have to be really careful if you're leading a generational organization, an organization that will last generations, like in a church. You have to be very careful taking these radical positions because, yes, you can shift people. I've done that. It works. The problem is if you hold that radical position, then over time people will start to believe that and it will become dogmatic. And the dogma will begin to outweigh sense. So you have to be careful with that in Christianity. You have to know when it's happening. When someone takes a radical position one direction, sometimes the only way to counterbalance that is a radical a radical position on the other side. The problem is that's when you start creating the polarization, and that's what's happened in the United States. The left has taken an extremely radical approach, and most Americans just want to live a good life without government intrusion, or as much as possible. And what we're finding now is the polarization of America is happening between the authoritarians and the libertarians, not even Democrat and Republican, because you're seeing all sorts of these people. They're switching political parties, or they are crossing political lines, because you've got the people of liberty on one side and the people of authoritarian on the other. The authoritarian Republicans are on one side, and the libertarian Democrats are on the other side. But the libertarian Democrats and the libertarian Republicans are there together, and the authoritarian Republicans and the authoritarian Democrats are there together, and the authoritarianism is only on the left. You can't find that. The further right you go, you end up with hardcore libertarian. That's where the Libertarian Party used to stand. Does not stand in this election cycle that way. The Libertarian candidate made a massive boo-boo and endorsed authoritarianism out of ignorance. Always happens to the Libertarian candidate. But anyway, that's what you need to know about taking radical positions. So the second quote I want to talk about, actually, you know what? I'm just going to make a second video because I think that's going to be the best use of our time, and we'll go from there.